The sun was sinking low, spilling its last light like honey across the desert plain. The land stretched wide and endless, a canvas of gold and rust, where shadows of wagon wheels long buried still seemed to roll across the dust. A wind came sighing through brittle grass, carrying the smell of sage and pine smoke, carrying the quiet sorrow of another day gone. And down that road of silence walked a child, barefoot, thin as a shadow himself. His name was Elias, though few in the village called him by it. Most had forgotten he was a boy with a name at all. They called him simply the orphan. He did not resist. To be nameless was easier than to be unwanted. His feet pressed the dirt in soft rhythm, soles tough from years of walking alone. His eyes, large and dark, looked not ahead but toward the ground, as if searching for something he had long since lost. Each step carried the weight of a memory, a mother's lullaby fading into fevered coughs, a father's strong hand replaced by stillness in the earth. Elias had been only 8 when the fever came like wildfire, devouring homes and hearts alike. Now he was 13, though his bones ached as though he carried 50 winters. The village kept him in the way a cold barn keeps an old tool, not out of love, but because it seemed wrong to cast him aside entirely. He swept floors, carried buckets, chased chickens. Some gave him scraps of bread, others nothing but scorn. Elias bore it all in silence, for silence had become his shield. But silence is a cruel companion. On this evening, when the sky bled crimson and the wind whispered like a mourner, Elias heard something that was not silence. A whimper, faint, broken, carried on the edge of the breeze. He stopped. His heart stirred like a bird startled from stillness. He turned his head. From behind a row of dry bushes, it appeared. A puppy, ribs sharp against its thin hide, formatted with burrs, eyes bright as stars struggling against the dark. It limped toward him, tail tucked low, body trembling. Elias knelt, and for the first time in many days, his lips softened into something almost like a smile. He held out his hand, slow, patient, as though offering the air itself. The pup sniffed, hesitated, then pressed its cold nose into his palm. It was a meeting of 2 strays. Elias whispered, though no one was near to hear. "You're hungry, aren't you? Just like me." The pup licked his fingers, a rough, desperate gesture that felt like trust. Elias reached into his pocket, pulled the crust of bread he had saved from his midday chore. He broke it gently, gave it piece by piece. The puppy devoured it with grateful eyes that seemed to thank him more than words ever could. And then, when the bread was gone, the pup turned. Limping but determined, it trotted away from the village, glancing back only once, as though asking Elias to follow. The boy hesitated. His chores were done. No one would miss him. The evening was falling colder, and the world beyond the last fence was nothing but silence and wildness. Yet something stirred in him, a thread of curiosity, a whisper of fate. So he followed. The pup led him across brittle grass that cracked like old bones beneath their steps, past the sagging fence posts, past the dry creek bed where frogs no longer sang. The land grew wilder with each step, the air cooler, scented faintly of pine where the forest began to breathe against the desert's edge. The puppy limped but never slowed, and Elias kept pace. He spoke softly as he walked, as if confessing to the night. He told the pup of how the townsfolk laughed when he tried to help, how the children mocked his torn shirt, how even the church bell seemed to toll against him. And though the dog could not answer, it listened. Listening was enough. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. Only the scrape of Elias' feet and the soft pant of the pup filled the air. The sun dipped fully behind the horizon, leaving only a sliver of light like a candle burning low. Stars began to bloom, shy at first, then bold across the black canvas. And then Elias saw it. Half hidden among trees that had clawed their way upward for decades, stood a cabin. Abandoned, forgotten, its roof sagged with moss, its shutters hanging loose like tired eyelids. Vines crept up the wooden walls as though trying to claim it for the earth again. The door, gray and cracked, leaned slightly off its hinges. The sight of it struck Elias still. It seemed the kind of place whispered about in tales, a hunter's retreat left behind, or an outlaw's last refuge, or a homestead swallowed by sorrow. The air around it felt heavy with memory, as if the trees themselves remembered who once lived within. The puppy bounded to the steps and looked back, waiting. Its tail wagged faintly, urging Elias forward. The boy's heart beat slow and heavy in his chest. Every instinct told him to turn back, to leave the past where it lay buried. Yet something deeper called him onward. Perhaps it was loneliness, perhaps hunger, perhaps the sense that life had brought him here not by chance but by need. He climbed the steps. The boards creaked beneath his bare feet. His hand touched the door, rough wood against his palm, splinters pressing like small truths. He pushed. The door gave way with a groan, a long, aching sound, like a secret finally spoken. Dust billowed in the faint moonlight spilling through cracks in the roof. Inside, shadows waited deep and patient. The air smelled of pine sap, rust, and old sorrow. Elias stood on the threshold, the pup brushing against his leg, both of them trembling with the weight of what might lie inside. For the first time in years, Elias felt he was standing not on the edge of loss, but on the edge of discovery. And he stepped inside. The cabin breathed like a sleeping giant. Its boards groaned under the weight of years, its walls swollen with rain and silence. Elias stepped carefully, as though each footfall might wake the ghosts who surely lingered there. The puppy padded ahead, nails clicking softly on the warped wood, tail wagging as if the place belonged to him all along. Dust hung thick, stirred into tiny galaxies by the shifting air. Through the broken shutters, shafts of moonlight fell like silver ladders, touching the floor with a gentle glow. Elias' eyes followed them, cautious, curious, and strangely comforted. He had never stood inside such a place. The houses in the village were stiff and narrow, always smelling of smoke and sour bread, walls filled with muttering voices that never welcomed him. But here, though the cabin was abandoned, there was space to breathe. The silence did not scorn him. It held him, like arms too weary to judge. He whispered to the pup, "Is this where you live? Or did you only want me to find it?" The dog barked once, sharp but small, as though answering yes to both. Elias explored with a heart beating quick. His fingers traced the outlines of furniture long left to rot. A rocking chair frozen mid-motion, a table with one leg collapsed, shelves leaning heavy with the weight of forgotten objects. He touched them gently, almost reverently, as though he might disturb the memories woven into their grain. In the far corner stood a trunk, large, iron-bound, its lock broken long ago. Elias crouched before it, dust swirling like smoke around him. With both hands he lifted the lid. The hinges shrieked, and inside lay relics of another life. There were journals bound in cracked leather, their edges curled like dry leaves. Maps drawn on yellowing parchment, ink faded but still alive. Tools wrapped in cloth stiff with age. And letters, so many letters, tied with ribbon that had lost its color. Elias touched the journals first. He opened one with careful hands, the pages brittle but legible. The handwriting swept across in dark strokes, the voice of someone long gone, still speaking. He read aloud softly, the pup pressing close to his side, as though listening too. "This land holds more than it shows. Beneath the thirsty soil runs a river, hidden from men, but not from those who know the signs. I have marked its course, for someday it may be needed. If the town ever falls to drought or greed, let this knowledge guide them back to life." Elias' breath caught. A river, hidden underground. The words seemed to glow on the page, brighter than the moonlight itself. He turned another page. The cabin must remain untouched. Bandits circle these hills, hunting gold. But water is worth more than gold when the earth runs dry. It must be protected, for the day will come when only the humble will believe. Elias closed the journal, his small hands trembling. He looked down at the dog. "Do you hear, Ash? That's your name now. Ash, like fire left glowing in the dark. You led me here for a reason." The pup wagged its tail, nuzzling against Elias' arm as though sealing the name with approval. He read through more letters that night. though his eyes stung with weariness. Most spoke of simple things, a family once living here, their dreams of land and harvest, their fears of raiders. But scattered among them were warnings, sketches of landmarks, and circles drawn around places Elias half recognized on the horizon. One map in particular caught his breath. It showed the village, small and square, and a line drawn beneath it, a vein of water flowing unseen. If true, this could change everything. No more empty wells. No more dying cattle. The people who mocked him might drink again because of this. But then came fear. Would they listen? Would they even believe? Elias imagined the sheriff's hard laugh, the way the townsfolk's eyes slid past him like he wasn't there. An orphan with a story of hidden rivers. They would call it a child's fancy, another lie to beg for scraps. The thought hollowed him. He pressed his forehead against Ash's fur. The pup smelled of dust and grass, of something alive and stubborn. Ash licked his cheek as if to wipe the doubt away. Elias whispered into the fur. Maybe it doesn't matter if they believe. Maybe it's enough that I do. He closed the trunk, but not before taking the map and one journal. He tucked them into his ragged shirt, close against his chest. The paper crinkled with each breath, a reminder that he was carrying more than himself now. He was carrying a secret that might save or doom them all. The night deepened outside, stars bright and endless. The cabin sighed in its sleep, boards stretching with cold. Elias curled in a corner with Ash at his side. The pup rested its head on his ribs, rising and falling with each of the boys' breaths. It was the first time in years Elias did not feel entirely alone. Yet even as sleep tugged at him, he heard the faint echo of danger in the distance. Wolves, perhaps, or men. A reminder that the world outside this fragile shelter was still cruel, still waiting. He dreamed of rivers breaking through dry earth, of villagers kneeling to drink, of Ash running free through fields green again. But in the corner of the dream lurked shadows on horseback, watching with hungry eyes. When dawn came, the light painted the cabin gold. Elias rose, clutching the map, heart still steady with fear and wonder. He knew now. What he held could change everything. But the question remained, would anyone let him? The puppy barked softly, as though urging him on. And so, boy and pup stepped out from the cabin, carrying with them the secret veins of the earth, and the weight of whether hope could be trusted to a child no one believed in. The village lay under a sky that had forgotten rain. Each day the sun rose heavy and merciless, a great burning coin nailed to the heavens, beating its weight upon the roofs, the fields, the hearts of those who lived beneath. The wells had thinned to mud, the creek had turned to stone, and the cattle staggered ribs first into the dust. Children carried buckets that clinked empty, their eyes wide with thirst. Even the church bell rang softer, as though ashamed to call people to prayer when no answer seemed to come. Elias felt the ache of it as much as any of them. His tongue dry, his belly light, his hands raw from fetching water that was no longer there. He watched the grown folk gather in tight circles, whispering of leaving, of bandits circling like vultures waiting for the first fall. Despair hung heavier than smoke. Yet pressed against his chest, hidden beneath his shirt, the map whispered hope. He touched it whenever doubt pressed too close. The lines, the marks, the words in the old journal, they pulsed like a secret heartbeat. Beneath their feet ran water, if only someone would believe. So he tried. On a morning when the wind carried dust in long veils across the ground, Elias walked to the square. The sheriff stood there, a tall man with a hat pulled low and a face carved from pride. Townsfolk lingered near, tired eyes watching. Elias stepped forward, his voice shaking but strong enough to reach them. "There's water," he said. "Not far. Underground. I found maps, journals, in the old cabin by the pines. If we dig where they show, the village won't die." Silence fell, heavy and unkind. Then laughter cracked it open. The sheriff's mouth curled into something colder than mirth. "Water under the ground, is it? And who told you this, boy? The dog you drag around? Or the ghost in your head?" A ripple of laughter spread among the villagers. Some shook their heads, some spat in the dirt. Children whispered, mocking, eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. Elias held the map tight, voice small but stubborn. "It's real. I can show you." The sheriff stepped close, boots crunching the dust. He looked down with eyes that saw not a boy but nuisance. "Listen, orphan, we got no time for dreams. Men ride out here with guns, thirst biting their tongues. If you speak of fairy tales, you'll only waste what little hope folks have left." He turned his back, dismissing him as one swats a fly. The villagers followed suit, drifting away. Elias stood alone in the emptying square, shame burning hotter than the sun. Ash winded his feet, pressing close, tail tucked low. Elias knelt, burying his face into the dog's scruffy neck. The fur was warm, the only warmth he wanted. His voice broke as he whispered, "I knew they wouldn't listen." But not all ears were deaf. From the edge of the square, a man stepped forward slowly, broad-shouldered, with hands scarred from hammer and forge, eyes steady beneath soot-dark brows. Jonah, the blacksmith. He was not a man of many words. His silence was different from others. It did not scorn, it considered. He crouched, not to Elias, but to Ash first. His calloused hand reached, and the pup sniffed, then licked it without fear. Jonah nodded, as though that was all the truth he needed. Then his eyes lifted to Elias. "You've seen these maps yourself?" Elias nodded, pulling the folded parchment from his shirt. His hand shook as he opened it. Jonah bent close, tracing the faded lines with a finger blackened from forged soot. His face did not change, but something moved in his gaze, thought, wait, perhaps even belief. "I'll not mock you, boy," Jonah said at last, his voice like gravel ground soft by years. "Show me this cabin." Hope flickered in Elias like a match lit in darkness. That evening, with dusk spreading violet across the sky, Elias led Jonah and Ash beyond the fences, across brittle grass and toward the trees. The air smelled of pine and silence. When they reached the cabin, Jonah stepped inside with heavy boots, his presence filling the place as though the walls remembered strength. He examined the journals, the letters, the maps scattered across the table. He read slowly, lips moving but no sound escaping, every word sinking deep. When he looked up, his eyes met Elias. "This is no child's fancy," he said. "The man who wrote this was no fool. He knew land, knew rivers. If he says there's water here, there may well be." Elias nearly wept at those words. After years of being unseen, here was someone who looked and did not turn away. But Jonah's voice darkened. "It won't be easy. Digging means days of labor, and the bandits ride close. If they scent water, they'll come like wolves. The sheriff won't believe, but perhaps the others will, if they see us dig first." He placed a hand on Elias' shoulder, firm, grounding. Elias stiffened at the unfamiliar weight of kindness, then softened into it. His chest swelled, not with pride, but with the fragile bloom of being trusted. Ash barked once, sharp and bright, as though to seal the pact. And so the next day, quietly, Jonah and Elias began. They walked to the place marked on the map, a stretch of cracked earth at the village's edge. With spades borrowed under excuse, they pressed iron into soil. The ground was stubborn, resisting. Hours passed with sweat and ache, but still they dug. A few children came to watch, jeering at first, then lingering when they saw the blacksmith's steady labor. A woman paused with her bucket, eyes narrowed in curiosity. Little by little, whispers spread. By nightfall, a small pit gaped in the earth. Nothing yet, but Elias' hope did not falter. He remembered the journal's words, "Only the humble will believe." That night, under stars spread wide as hope itself, Elias lay beside Ash and Jonah's quiet fire. He stared into the flames, his body sore, but his spirit alight. For the first time, he was not digging alone. The village still doubted. The sheriff still scorned. But the earth was listening, and Elias believed it would answer. And when it did, all their lives would change. The days stretched thin, like leather worn to its last fibers. Elias and Jonah dug from dawn until stars pricked the sky, their spades clanging against stubborn earth. Ash never left their side, his paws pacing, his bark echoing when fatigue threatened to still them. The pit deepened, each strike of iron a prayer to the hidden river below. But with each day of labor, the village's patience thinned. Men muttered of wasted time. Women shook their heads, their eyes dark with doubt. The sheriff smirked each time he passed, his words cutting sharp. The boy's chasing ghosts, Jonah. Best save your strength for what's real. Jonah never answered. His silence was shield enough. Elias clung to that silence like rope on a cliff. Then came the bandits. They rode from the hills at dusk, silhouettes black against the reddened sky, dust boiling behind their horses. A dozen men or more, faces hidden by scarves, guns gleaming like teeth. The village froze at the sight, hearts turning brittle as clay. Children were pulled indoors, doors slammed, shutters barred. The sheriff gathered a few men with rifles, but their hands shook too much to steady their aim. The bandits circled, their leader tall in the saddle, voice rough as broken glass. "Word says your wells are dry," he called. "Word says you're ripe for plucking. Hand over what's left, grain, stock, coin, and we'll let your bones keep their skin." Fear swept the square. Villagers looked to the sheriff, but he faltered, his pride cracking beneath the weight of terror. His gun wavered, his stance weak. In the shadows, Elias clutched the map. His heart thundered. This was the moment the journals had warned of, bandits circling, hunger pressing, despair closing in. Salvation lay beneath the earth, but only if he could prove it before hope broke entirely. He ran, past the trembling villagers, past the sneering bandits, toward the pit he and Jonah had carved with bleeding hands. Ash barked wildly, racing beside him, tail like a flag of defiance. The bandit leader laughed. "Look at that. Your orphan's running. Maybe he'll fetch us a miracle." His men jeered, the sound sharp as knives. But Elias did not hear them. He dropped into the pit, spade in hand, striking again and again. Jonah was beside him in moments, sweat and dust painting his face, his great hands swinging the tool with force born of faith. The bandits edged closer, curiosity pulling at their reins. Villagers gathered too, drawn by the frenzy of the boy and the blacksmith tearing at the earth. Dust rose, choking, blinding. The pit deepened, and then a sound, soft at first like a sigh, then louder. A gurgle, a rush, a roar. The earth shuddered beneath them, giving way with a cry like something long imprisoned breaking free. From the cracked soil burst a stream, silver and wild, spraying into the air before falling back in glittering arcs. Water, cool, clear, alive. It poured into the pit, spilling over, darkening the dust into fertile mud. The villagers gasped, cries breaking from their throats, half disbelief, half joy. Children surged forward, cupping hands, letting the water kiss their lips. Women fell to their knees, weeping. Men shouted, voices cracking with relief. The bandits reared back, their leader's sneer faltering. "Water," he muttered, eyes narrowing. By God, they found water. Greed flashed in their gaze. They spurred forward, weapons raised, intent to claim what had been unearthed. But the villagers, now fueled by something stronger than fear, surged to meet them. No longer broken, no longer meek. They stood with rifles steady, shovels raised, stones clutched in fists. The sheriff, once faltering, found his voice. "This is ours. You'll not take it." His gun rang out, the shot sparking like thunder. The villagers roared, their courage sharpened by the miracle at their feet. The bandits faltered. They had come to plunder the weak, not to face the reborn. The sight of silver water flooding the ground unnerved them, as though the land itself had risen against them. One by one, they turned, horses wheeling, dust rising in retreat. Their leader cursed, but even he knew this fight was lost. They fled into the hills, swallowed by the dusk. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of rushing water. Elias stood in the pit, chest heaving, mud soaking his knees. Ash barked joy into the twilight, splashing in the stream as though he had always known this would come. Jonah reached down, pulled Elias up, his great hand engulfing the boy's thin one. He placed that hand on Elias' shoulder, firm and proud. "You did it, lad," he said softly. "You believed when none of us would." The villagers gathered close, faces shining with gratitude and shame. The sheriff, hat in hand, stepped forward, his pride shattered but his voice low. "We were blind. Forgive us, boy. Without you, we'd have withered to nothing." Elias said nothing at first. Words had so long been dismissed, ignored, mocked. But now silence felt different. It was not empty, it was full. Full of water, of life, of being seen. At last he whispered, voice barely more than breath. "It wasn't me alone. It was the maps. The man who wrote them. And Ash. He led me there. I only listened." Jonah smiled, the rarest thing on his scarred face. That's what makes a man wise. Listening when others laugh. The night stretched cool around them, the air damp for the first time in years. The earth drank deeply, and so did the people. Laughter rang, pure and unrestrained, echoing against the hills. Elias knelt by the stream, cupping water in his small hands. Ash lapped beside him, tail wagging. Together they drank, boy and pup, strays no longer. For in that moment, Elias knew he belonged, not because the village had granted it, but because he had given them life. The moon rose high, painting silver on the water's surface. Villagers lit torches, not in fear, but in celebration. Music drifted faint, someone strumming a fiddle long silent. Children splashed, mothers sang, fathers clasped each other's shoulders. And Elias stood at the heart of it, Jonah's steady hand on his shoulder, Ash at his side. For the first time, he was not invisible. He was the thread that had stitched a dying town back to life. The cabin's journals had spoken true. Only the humble would believe. An orphan, a stray pup, and a quiet blacksmith. Such was the trinity that saved them. Not the proud, not the strong, but the overlooked. As the fire crackled, as laughter rose, Elias lifted his gaze to the stars. They seemed brighter now, cleaner, as though washed by the water below. He whispered into the night, a prayer not for himself, but for all who were ever forgotten. May the world remember, salvation comes quiet, like rivers under the ground, like strays finding home. Ash barked once, tail sweeping the dust. The villagers cheered. Jonah laughed low in his chest. And the orphan boy smiled, the smile of someone who had walked through silence and found song. And so, dear listener, the tale of Elias and Ash flows to its end, as rivers do when they find the sea. Remember this when the world grows cruel and you feel unseen. Sometimes the greatest truths are carried by the smallest hands. Sometimes salvation is hidden in the hearts no one thought to trust. If this story has touched you, let it rest in your heart a while. Share it with another soul who might need, reminding that the overlooked are often the ones who save us. And tell me, where are you watching from tonight? From which corner of this wide world does my voice reach you, as the fire burns low and the stars keep watch?